Notification as well for the public to be able to have sufficient notification. So again, I appreciate the communication. I just hope it doesn't become a habit or precedent. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Cerro. Senator Port.
Thank you, Chair Boldon and members. Excited to bring this bill in front of you. It is very clear across all of our communities that we have a housing crisis in Minnesota. It spans from the metro to the far reaches of our state and really affects every community across our state. It looks a lot different in all of those places. In some places, it is about multifamily home. In other places, it's about workforce housing. In others, it's about supportive housing with services that meet the needs of the folks who need housing. And it is not a problem that's going to be solved with one solution. But it is a problem that we can make a significant impact on this year. We have an opportunity in front of us to really make the kind of transformative investment that the housing crisis across Minnesota needs us to make, that families and seniors and students and people with disabilities need us to make. We have that opportunity this year. And I am excited about this bill because it is one of the most critical pieces of that, the solution for the housing crisis. Senate File 1094 puts forth $1 billion in bonds for housing. It is a combination of $750 million in housing infrastructure bonds split across the next 2 years, and $250 million to preserve and improve public housing. Those are two critical pieces, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the housing infrastructure bonds piece because it is a tool that is sort of unique and grateful for the commissioner and her team to come in and explain housing infrastructure bonds to us last week or earlier this week so that we could have that baseline for it. But really the critical need that housing infrastructure bonds meet is they are flexible. They can be used for multifamily construction. They can be used for single-family home construction. They can be used for supportive housing for seniors. Over the years, we have slowly added some new uses to those bonds, and they are filling just an absolutely necessary component of creating housing across the housing spectrum. Housing infrastructure bonds are the largest state source of funding for housing creation and preservation. And even in the sometimes fairly large amounts that we've done in the past, 250 million, 100 million, the investment that our state makes in housing is 0.4%. As less than 0.5% of our state's budget is spent on housing. And that lack of investment over the last decades has really reached a crisis point now. I have some testifiers with me, Ms. Law from MCCD, and we have some other testifiers. So if we could go to those, Chair, that would be great.
Chair,
Senator Draheim.
do we have an amendment on, author's amendment on this?
That will be offered later, Senator
Okay.
Draheim. Yes.
So
But yes, there is.
At that point, if I could, Chair, it'd be nice to get a kind of a fiscal recap once all those other sections are rearranged. Thank you.
Yes, noted. Thank you.
Yeah. And Chair, if I can.
Senator Port.
To that point, Senator Draheim, the plan for this bill is to lay over the portion of the bill that will stay in our committee and to amend out the portion that needs to go to capital investment and move that on so that that will continue through the process.
Chair? Chair,
Senator Draheim.
will that section be carried in a different bill then?
Senator Port.
Thank you, Chair Boldon and Senator Draheim. The portion that stays in our committee will be laid over for inclusion in the omnibus, and the Capital Investment Committee will move on the other portion.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Senator Port. We will begin with testimony, starting with Ms. Law. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Vice Chair Boldon. I think we're going to move forward with Randy as our first testifier.
Very-
So I will.
Very good. I will invite Mr. Umflett to come forward. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Yes, my name is Randy Umflett, and this is my testimony. Vice Chair Boldon, members of the committee, my name is Randy Umflett. I am here today as a resident of Aon, and have been asked to speak about the importance of passing Senate File 1094 this year. 7 years ago, I was homeless. I had hurt my back at work, and over time, I had become addicted to painkillers the doctor prescribed. I tried multiple times to come off the drugs, but I wasn't able to. Eventually, I lost my housing. I ended up staying on the streets and then at a shelter. I lived in a room with 17 other men double bunked. Although this time was hard, I was lucky. There were only 2 staff at the shelter that helped people get permanent housing. They were so overworked that most people didn't even know that this staff existed. But I happened to walk by the office one day, and they reached out to me. As a single person, it can be easy to slip through the cracks. But they helped me find a home with Aon and to get other support through Simpson Housing Services. When I finally got a home, I was clean within just a few months. Simpson helped me get care for both my physical and my mental health. I was shown a model of what sobriety could look like. They showed me that there was a chance for me. I remember my first day. I remember it was, just like yesterday, knowing that this was my place for the first time. Simpson gave me some things to help me, cleaning supplies, blankets, a pillow, and for that first time, it was my pillow, it was my bed, it was my room. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I hadn't had that for a long time. And 6 years later, here I am. That was the first day, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Coming from the madness of the shelter, my own apartment was serenity. Having supportive housing changed everything. It gave me a home. I'm so grateful that I was brought back to center. Without those workers at the shelter who reached out to me and provided a chance, I wouldn't be where I am today. Through them, I found an apartment, and together, Aon and Simpson saved my life. When you're living on the street, you sleep wherever you can. There is no feeling of safety. You're always on your guard. Being in a shelter gave me a basic level of safety that allowed me to hope for something more. And now I have the ultimate safety of being at home. Not everybody gets this. I did. I get to smile today because of it. I ask you to support and pass Senate File 1094 this year. It would help Aon and other organizations build more supportive housing for thousands of people just like me, because all Minnesotans deserve a safe and stable place to call home. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you, Mr. Umflett, for your testimony and for sharing your story. Next, we will hear from Ms. Rathman-Smith. After that will be Mr. Jeff Washburn. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Rathman-Smith. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Vice Chair Boldon, members of the committee, my name is Heidi Rathman-Smith, and I am the Director of Acquisitions and Development at Common Bond Communities. I'm here in strong support of Senate File 1094. Common Bond Communities is a nonprofit, affordable housing developer, property manager, and service provider. We're based in St. Paul, and last year we celebrated our 50th anniversary of service. We operate in the states of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and South Dakota, where we serve 13,000 people. In Minnesota, we serve nearly 10,000 people, including seniors, families, veterans in suburban, urban, and rural communities in greater Minnesota and the metropolitan area, including examples like Elk Ridge Lodge in Elk River, Fitzgerald Flats in Forest Lake, LeSueur Meadows in LeSueur, Minnesota, and the Cooperage in Minnesota, and Valleys in Minneapolis, and Valley Square Commons in Golden Valley. Many of our developments were made possible with housing infrastructure bond financing. Given the limited amount of available federal 9% low-income housing tax credits, housing infrastructure bonds have become a critical tool in addressing the ever-increasing need for affordable housing, ensuring that the state of Minnesota delivers more units at deeper levels of affordability. One of our recent projects, Owasso Gardens, a 60-unit senior building in Roseville, opened in 2020, was set aside for formerly homeless veterans, and that would not have been possible. It would not have been possible to receive the competitive 9% low-income housing tax credit for that project, and this project is open today because of housing infrastructure bonds. For more than a decade, Minnesota has not been able to keep up with the demands of more housing to meet Minnesota's growing population, and certainly not enough to meet the needs of those struggling with housing costs and instability. As demand for affordable housing solutions grow, so too does our work. However, providing affordable housing for those who need it most has been increasingly costly and challenging. Our projects, both development financing and the ongoing operations, are getting squeezed by rising operating expenses and increases in interest rates and construction pricing. On the operating expense side, property insurance was up 20% in 2022, 15% in 2023. Security expenses have increased by 25% since the start of the pandemic, and the cost to heat our properties has increased by 30%. A project that would have had a relatively manageable gap just 3 years ago now potentially has a gap that is 2 to 3 times larger than just a few years ago. And like all developers, we've had to combat increases in construction pricing, which remains significantly elevated since the start of COVID. Existing Minnesota housing resources are required to fill these gaps, as additional debt cannot be supported. As a result, the number of units that can be developed is reduced, making the need for housing infrastructure bonds that much more critical. Indeed, the number of projects funded by Minnesota Housing in the last round, a round in which HIBs were not available, was significantly less than prior years. This decrease in the number of funded projects will continue without a significant investment in housing infrastructure bonds. As mentioned, after leveraging the low-income housing tax credit program and project-supported debt, we still have significant gaps that are preventing us to move forward with our projects and delaying our timelines. Authorizing half of the housing infrastructure bonds for 2023 and the other half for 2024 is extremely critical to create a more predictable and efficient pipeline of funding for affordable housing. Today, we are seeking sites for 2024 and 2025 construction. This allows developers of affordable housing to move forward with site control, pre-development activities, and anticipating funding needs. If we can't be reasonably sure that there is a gap filler at the state level to fill this gap, we cannot create a pipeline to ensure that when housing infrastructure bonds are available, the projects are there, ready to be funded, and can move forward towards closing and start construction. It's no surprise that the most efficient and effective way to ensure long-term affordable housing is to preserve the affordable housing we already have. Housing infrastructure bonds not only fills the gaps in new unit creation, but just as important, it provides the much-needed rehabilitation resources to ensure that the high cost of capital needs for improvements such as HVAC upgrades, windows, roofing, elevator modernization, energy-efficient upgrades, and safety elements can be prioritized in our existing affordable housing stock, much of which is now 30, 40, and 50 years old. By passing Senate File 1094 and fully funding bonds for housing, Common Bond, and organizations like ours, we can be your partner in meeting the housing needs for all communities that call Minnesota home. Thank you, Chair, for carrying this bill, and thank you, Vice Chair Boldon and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have now or in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Rathman-Smith. Next, we'll hear from Jeff Washburn, Executive Director, City of Lakes Community Land Trust. And after that will be Judy Moe. Mr. Washburn, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Vice Chair Boldon. Community members, my name is Jeff Washburn. I'm the director with the City of Lakes Community Land Trust, a community land trust that serves the city of Minneapolis. I also serve as co-chair of the Home Coalition, or Home Ownership Minnesota group. That coalition consists of community land trust, Habitat for Humanities, community action programs, nonprofit developers, counseling agencies supported through the Home Ownership Center, and manufactured housing. I'd like to think the vast majority, if not all, kind of nonprofit affordable housing providers are part of this coalition, and we are very much in support of this bill, as well as the changes associated with a shift from language related to currently utilizing housing infrastructure bonds as loans to grants. Our coalition covers the majority of the state and are able to serve households of color at a rate of 2 to 6 times the local population in the areas that they serve. As I've shared in previous testimony, reducing this disparity is a huge goal of ours here in the state. We're currently the 5th worst state as it relates to racial disparities. And it's something that we do believe that additional funds will help us produce more housing. Part of the challenge that we're facing is there's just not enough production, as well as funds to assist lower income households getting into home ownership in the state. The housing infrastructure bonds have been able to assist us in accomplishing that goal. In addition to the challenge funds provided by the state of Minnesota, housing infrastructure bonds have been equally critical over the past couple of years. 6 years ago, Minnesota legislators approved the use of housing infrastructure bonds for community land trusts for the acquisition of the land and infrastructure. Over those 6 years, the use has been expanded to other affordable home ownership uses over the last couple of years. The amount invested over those 6 years has been roughly $12.6 million, which have produced 356 affordable home ownership opportunities. Clearly, this ask that's on the table, by increasing that amount, which would be significant, hopeful that a portion of those funds would go toward affordable home ownership, and I believe all of you can do the math that it would be a significant increase for our organizations and benefit folks here in the state. I believe our organization, the City of Lakes Community Land Trust, has been the largest recipient of these housing infrastructure bonds for home ownership over the last 6 years, and we're leaving dozens of households waiting every year to get additional funds, raising dollars from multiple places, not just the state of Minnesota, to fill up those buckets to invest back in households. I feel confident that even my organization has the capacity to double or triple the number of households that we assist without having to build up additional resources within my organization to do so. Our only limiter really is the funds that we then invest in people or the homes that we're creating in our community. As shared, the housing infrastructure bonds are another tool. We need as many tools as possible to fill these gaps that were just shared that not only impact multifamily housing challenges, but also single-family home ownership. So with that, thank you so much for the time. Thank you, Chair Port, for introducing this, and free to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Washburn. Next, we will hear from Judy Moe, and after that will be Justin Smith. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Moe. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Judy Moe, M-O-E. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Thank you for allowing me to come speak to you today. My name is Judy Moe, and I am the director of the Richfield Disability Advocacy Partnership. I also serve on the Minnesota Council on Disability, and in the past, I served on the Olmsted Accessible Housing Work Group. But today, I am coming to you as a mom of a daughter, who's right over there, who uses a wheelchair, and the need for accessible, affordable housing. In 2019, my daughter and I lost our housing and were not able to find new housing because so little accessible housing exists. 2 of the months we were homeless, we stayed at an extended stay hotel, where we met a man who had lived there for 9 months. He told us that he also was not able to find accessible housing. The interesting thing about hotels is that the Americans with Disabilities Act requires, for example, that a certain percentage of hotel rooms have roll-in showers if the hotel has 51 or more rooms. There is currently no requirement by state or federal law that any percentage of housing units have roll-in showers. Currently, people with disabilities who are capable of living independently are being forced to live in group homes and nursing homes, or worse, becoming and staying homeless for years before, if ever, finding housing. I call this the crisis that no one is talking about. And this bill is just the first step in addressing this ongoing crisis in Minnesota. When HousingLink.com did their survey in 2018, they found that there were 1.3 million searches for housing in Minnesota using their search tool. And according to that survey, 44% of those who performed a housing search had 1 or more disabilities. In that same year, only 24% of the vacancies posted on their website featured 1 or more accessible features. And for renters who were not successful in their housing search, 53% reported the reason as not enough accessible rental units, and 80% reported not enough accessible rental units that were also affordable. The demand for accessible housing has never been greater. Today, you have a chance to move Senate File 1094 forward and let the disability community know that we are not invisible and that you see us and intend to make accessible housing a priority. Thanks again for allowing me to speak to you today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Moe.
Chair,
Senator Draham?
can I ask the testifier what community you were living in?
Ms. Moe?
Yes, Richfield.
Senator Draham?
Thank you, and thank you for testifying.
Yes.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Smith. Please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Justin Smith and I live in Roseville. I am here in support of Senate File 1094, which includes a policy change that would ensure that when using state dollars, such as housing infrastructure bonds to build housing, that we are building housing that works for everyone, including people with disabilities. I'm a young man in my 20s, use a wheelchair to move around, and my communication device to help me speak. Over 2 years ago, I started a quest to find a wheelchair-accessible apartment so I could move out of my parents' house and live on my own. Let me share my experience. First, I learned there is simply a lack of accessible and affordable housing. Of the over 5,000 current Ramsey County apartment vacancies, there are currently 2 apartments that might work for someone using a wheelchair, is low income, and not 55 plus, because if I wanted 55 plus I'd just keep living with my parents. From looking at the floor plans, neither would work for me. My best chance of finding an apartment was looking at brand new developments. I quickly discovered there are no consistent criteria for what qualifies as wheelchair accessible. As part of my search, I toured a new 98-unit building that had 1 studio and 1 one-bedroom they considered wheelchair accessible. 2%. Wow. Both units had bathtubs instead of roll-in showers needed by many wheelchair users or those using walkers. I may be able to get into a building, ride in an elevator, and enter an apartment, but wouldn't actually be able to live there. Here's the thing. I do not want to live in a group home or segregated apartment building where everyone has a disability. I use self-directed services so I can choose my own support staff. And I want to be part of an inclusive community with people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds. I eventually lucked out and found a place just being built that had an apartment with a roll-in shower. The apartment is not ideal, but it's workable. And I've lived there for just over a year. It's important to know, the only reason I am in my apartment today is because I was lucky enough to talk to the right person at the right time, and I had savings in my ABLE account that helped me pay my rent this past year. I'm able to remain in my apartment because I just got a Section 8 housing voucher. We need the state to ensure that people have the same opportunities and access to living in their own homes as any other setting. And we need to design for accessibility from the start. If we're not building more accessible apartments that actually work for people with disabilities, that are integrated and included in our community, where do we live? This policy change will help move us towards building an inclusive Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your testimony. Senator Port.
Thank you, Chair Boldon, and members. I thought it was important to hear from testifiers before wrapping up the bill, because it's a reminder that housing needs look different across the state, across our communities, and that we really should be focusing on what we can do to make sure we're meeting those needs. So in this bill, a couple of things that it does is it expands the eligibility of housing infrastructure bonds to include development and preservation of housing at 50% AMI and under for households that don't need those wraparound supportive services. Preference is still given to housing that is 30% AMI and under, but being sort of overly prescriptive, especially as we're adding a significant amount of money, could leave thousands out that we could currently serve. In our state, there's currently no funding source for housing at 50% AMI and below for households that don't require those supportive wraparound services. And we've heard from many groups that not everyone that makes 50% AMI needs those supportive services. They can live independently, they just need affordable rent. And that is not a sort of a gap that the market is going to fill on its own. It is something that the state needs to make sure that we are investing in. So by expanding the eligible uses to include housing at 50% AMI and under, we can ensure that the folks that fall between that 30% and 50% AMI level also have access to housing that's affordable to them. Additionally, the bill addresses inconsistent definitions of what the term accessible means to ensure that people with disabilities have housing that is both affordable and accessible to them. We heard some of those stories today from our testifiers, but right now, Minnesota housing requires that 5% of units in buildings with 4 or more units be accessible. And this bill would improve the level of accessibility to include a roll-in shower, which is currently only optional. It would improve accessibility by including 5% sensory accessible units. That includes soundproofing, no fluorescent lights, low fume paint, low chemical carpet, and low chemical carpet glue. The purpose of this change is to ensure that units with the highest level of accessibility, accessible building code are also affordable because those two intersect so often. This bill also clarifies that home ownership investments through HIBs will be through grants, not loans. When home ownership projects are funded through loans rather than grants, it creates a balance sheet issue for home ownership developers as they end up carrying the load, the loan liability for longer than they have the offset asset on their building list, as we heard from Mr. Washburn. And additionally, this authorizes the first half of HIBs for 2023 and the other half for 2024 to create a more predictable pipeline for affordable housing. There is a lack of confidence in the affordable housing sector for available funding plans to plan for future projects. Since additional HIBs were not allocated during the 2022 legislative session, we unfortunately lost some of those shovel-ready projects that otherwise could have gone forward. And we need to send a signal to the affordable housing developers that the pipeline of funding is here to support their development. Many times these projects take multiple years to move through the process. And creating that pipeline gives them the confidence that they can start that process and that when they are ready to close and be shovel ready, that the funds will be there. We have many more shovel-ready projects than the state has funding for. $1 billion in bonds for housing will allow us to build critically needed affordable housing across the state. There are thousands of multifamily and single-family units of housing that are ready to be built. We just need to say yes. We have talked in this committee for several years about supply. Supply, supply, supply. We need more housing units. Without investing in the development and preservation of affordable housing, we can't begin to address the lack of supply of housing options. Housing infrastructure bonds are an incredibly flexible tool, and they are the state's largest source of capital for developing and preserving affordable housing. We need those consistent and reliable investments, and HIBs are uniquely qualified to address the lack of affordable housing supply in Minnesota. The time for transformative investments in housing is now. Housing is a justice issue. By investing in our state's ability to develop and preserve affordable housing, we can ensure that folks across income levels are able to stay stably housed. Since 2012, HIBs have been used to fund more than 7,000 units of housing across Minnesota. With a $750 million investment in housing infrastructure bonds, we expect to build or preserve thousands of additional housing units. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Port. Discussions and questions, members. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And a question for the bill author. You, in your closing remarks there, you had mentioned the 5% unit requirement for 4 or more. Can you clarify 4 or more than 4?
Senator Port.
Thank you, Chair Lucero. It is for units that are 4 units or more, more than 4 or more.
Fourplex.
4 or more, a fourplex or more.
Yeah.
So if it's 3, it is not required to have an accessibility component. If it is 4 or more units, it is.
Senator Lucero.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, because I'm looking at line 3.19 and it says the words on a building containing more than 4 units, which would be 5 or more.
Senator Port.
3.19.
Am I on the right bill? Maybe I'm not on the right bill. Let's make sure. No, I am. Line 3.19?
Senator Port.
You're correct, Senator Lucero.
Senator Lucero.
Okay, thank you. So then my question would be, what is the intention of the author? Is it to be 5 or more or 4 or more?
Senator Port.
It is to be what the current language is. Maybe Mr. Kitzenberg has advice from the agency.
Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Hi, Julia Page from the ARC Minnesota, Public Policy Director. Madam Chair, Senator Lucero, it was the intention for, because there are some other uses for housing infrastructure bonds, we were trying to target rental apartment buildings, and that 4 or more would be an easier way of having that 5% accounted for. We didn't want to, not as many triplexes being built. We had talked to Minnesota Housing, and many of the projects that access and utilize these housing infrastructure bonds are far more units than 4, but I think it would be maybe be a simple change in the language to ensure that it's 4 or more instead of more than 4.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, and I appreciate that. So we actually spoke, the 2 testifiers up, we had a meeting yesterday on this very topic where I asked that question. And my preference, just putting on the record, would be to leave it at 5 or more. And the reason for the delineation and the reason, or what we discussed yesterday, was Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines allow for rental, or allow for a conforming, a 30-year conventional loan on up to 4 units. So there's already a delineation between 4 and less and 5 and more. So 5 and more is considered a commercial property versus a residential property. So that's why it would be my preference, just making it out there that the language stays as it is. So then the next question I would have, on that same page, page 3. So lines 3.27, 3.28, and 3.29, and actually 3.30, use the verbiage low chemical, low fume. Is there a definition of what those mean? And the reason I'm asking that is because as a general contractor, there's a code book that we have to go by for construction, and everything is very specific. How many inches joists have to overlap, the number of inches depth for footings, you pick it. There's a very specific number for it that allows for people to construct and build to that code. Is there some kind of definition for this?
Ms. Page.
Madam Chair, Senator Lucero, we had discussions with Minnesota Housing on this as well about if it needed to be spelled out in statute or not, and we felt that it wasn't quite necessary to get as detailed, so we would really lean on Minnesota Housing to determine what would qualify as that through their development of their construction guide for accessibility.
Senator Lucero.
Okay, and then one last question. On line 3.26, whereas, as we just discussed, the usage of the word low is there, on 3.26, it's soundproofing. So does that mean 0 sound, or would it mean low sound? Because soundproofing, I would suspect, is going to be way different than low sound.
Ms. Page.
Madam Chair, Senator Lucero, my answer is the same, is that Minnesota Housing, we would have them make that determination when they're building their construction guide for accessibility. I think we would be open to low sound or soundproofing either way. I think whatever Minnesota Housing would feel would be the most viable or most, helpful for developers in ensuring that they have those. It's about, for folks who have different sensory sensitivities regarding sound, and there's, various folks, it's not just folks with disabilities, some folks with PTSD, different various, diagnoses and sensitivities. So whatever Minnesota Housing would feel would be best for developers.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, and I appreciate those remarks. So again, just throwing it out there, because soundproofing, the plain reading of language means 0 sound rather than low sound. So thank you.
Senator Port.
Thank you. And Senator Lucero, to those questions, the goal of this portion is to add new sort of provisions that the agency needs to put in their accessibility guideline. They currently sort of make the rules around those and lay out the specific definitions. This is to have new required provisions that they must include in that rulemaking, but would be happy to work with you. We are going to lay this portion of the bill over to include, and happy to continue to have those conversations to make sure that it is both meets the needs of the people we're trying to serve, but also the needs of the contractors and developers who are going to be building these units.
Any follow-up? Senator Draheim.
Thank you, and sorry, Senator Rest. Thank you, first off, for bringing this forward. A lot of great concepts in here. I do think we need to flesh out some things a little bit, and I just want to build on Senator Lucero's comments. The showers have always bugged me why they don't do that. And I think it might stem from financing. It used to be that HUD on a national level, you had to have a tub to get financing for that fourplex and less. I don't know about the apartment unit structure with government programs, but I just urge you and the other supporters of this bill to do some research and just make sure we're not stepping on any toes for financing, because we need that to get the deals done to build more units. I would also probably recommend on 3.19 that you do an 8-plex or larger, because I think if you leave it at the 5 or more units, there are a lot of smaller units that are built, and if you do a certain percentage, people aren't going to be able to build them. For me, I would have every unit have a shower that you walk in. I love that. The soundproofing, I think, was touched on. The low fume, low chemical. My mom is really sensitive to that. And they bought a new house, tons of trouble. And they actually just built a different home using old technology to eliminate what is in the code. It went back to older technology, copper, Formica insulation, or not Formica, fiberglass, thank you, et cetera. You get the idea. But there is a real need for a segment of the population that are very sensitive. So I'm glad that we're having this discussion. I don't know if this is the right mix, but it's a start, so I appreciate that. And then I'm a little confused on the path of the rest of this bill, because I understood that housing was going to be carried here, so, and we can have that offline. But I just wanted members to know that I'm confused. Thank you.
Senator Port, any follow-up?
I will say to that last point, appreciate your comments about, trying to meet the accessibility needs. It is, I think, going to be a work in progress, but we have to start somewhere. And so, trying to do as much as we can there. To the path, maybe we should do that portion of it so we can all see where it will go. So, Chair Boldon, I'd like to offer the A1 amendment.
Senator Port offers the A1 amendment. Senator Rest.
Yeah, I'm also concerned about those terms that are used that are so lacking definition. And if there are published guidelines or rules, why can't these very general terms be referred to as, this section of the code or whatever, so that people know exactly what the limits are. And then, excuse me, Madam Chair, Senator Port, if we delete this, then we can no longer discuss this. So I would ask you not to move to the whatever it is, A1 or A2 amendment until we have thoroughly discussed what's in it that you're going to be deleting to leave here. because otherwise we can't.
Sure.
The conversation about it stops.
Senator Port.
Thank you. To the first part of your question, this was the advice we got from MHFA on their rulemaking for putting in those into the accessibility guidelines, is to put sort of the general definition of what we wanted them to address. And then in their rulemaking, they make with contractors and developers the specific guidance.
So,
Senator
Madam
Rest.
Chair, so Senator Port, are you, I was looking through here for rulemaking authority. Are you going to have expedited rulemaking, or, I mean, how quickly do you want to get this done?
Senator Port.
That is an excellent question, Senator Rest. I guess we did not put in expedited rulemaking, but it would become a portion of, it would be defined in section 1002 of the current state building code on accessibility, which this would get added to, but we did not put a timeline for how quickly they would define those rules. We could add that if you'd.
So,
Senator
Madam Chair,
Rest.
so where is the reference to the code that would then facilitate rulemaking?
Senator Port.
Thank you. The portion of the accessibility building code that this is added to is referenced on line 3.22.
Senator Rest.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know when rulemaking is referred to in a bill, does it need to go to someplace other than the Committee of Origin?
Senator Port.
Thank you. And Senator Rest, because it is MHFA's inside rulemaking, our understanding, and perhaps Ms. Painter could offer guidance, is that because we have full jurisdiction over MHFA, that it only has to go here.
Ms. Painter.
And Madam Chair, I'm not even
Senator
sure
Rest.
which committee has
Dolly has.
jurisdiction on anything that deals with rulemaking in a general sense. I mean, is there a jurisdictional thing for rulemaking in specific that bills have to go to, or not?
Ms. Painter.
Generally speaking, new authorizations for rulemaking would be heard by state government.
Senator Rest.
So
And so, Madam Chair and Senator Port, would you anticipate then, since state government has authority over rulemaking, that it would have to go there?
Senator Port.
Thank you, Chair Boldon and Senator Rest. We did not receive a request or concern from State Gov that they needed to hear this bill, and MHFA did not believe they would need to. I'm certainly happy to look into it, but to this point, we have not heard that.
Well, Madam Chair and Senator Port, I hope you will ask them sometimes in a bill like this, since it's not referenced in the title, another committee that has general jurisdiction over rulemaking might not have noticed it. And I truly don't know the answer to the question, but I think once we start talking about rulemaking, we need to know if there's a side path that needs to be undertaken or not.
Mr. Kitzenberger from MHFA is here, so I might invite him to come up to the podium. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Dan Kitzberger. I'm the Legislative Director at Minnesota Housing. I think there might be just a little bit of conflation over rulemaking. We aren't actually anticipating any changes to our rules. This would all be guided by our construction and design standards that contractors, and the construction and design standards point to specific either building code or accessibility code that's, state, nationally, or internationally recognized. So in order to, for example, the definitions of, low fume, low chemical, those would all be spelled out per appropriate building code.
Senator Rest.
So then, if on line 3.22, there is this reference Senator Port made to section 1002 of the state building code. Within that, low fume paint is, the standard for it is set or not set?
Mr.
Or is this
Kitzberger?
just a, we want to let you know what we're thinking of, but it's not specific.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Senator Rest, my reading of that is that's referring to the accessible units in the definition in state building accessibility provisions. As far as the definitions of low fume paint, low chemical carpet, and low chemical carpet glue, I believe those would live in state building code. And, for example, for our new unit, and, we may need to work with advocates to have some more specification around that. But, those are our definitions that we work with, we see, we have requirements around in our construction and design standards.
Senator Rest.
Madam Chair, so why can't, for C, D, and E, have a reference, whatever part of the rule it is or statute, so when now say this, when an unsuspecting person reads that, they don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Mr. Kitzberger.
And there might be people like Senator Draheim and his mom who really need to know that, and what the rule was, or what the what part of those rules or statute meets the intent of this very general language.
Madam Chair,
Mr.
Senator
Kitzberger.
Rest, as one of those unsuspecting people, I think part of the rationale, at least as far as the conversations we've had with the advocates, is that these standards can change over time. And so along with those changes, our design standards and our construction standards change. We update those every 2 years. And so along with those changes to state, national, internationally recognized codes, we would update our manuals accordingly. And so, Madam Chair, Senator Rest, if it's of interest to the committee, we could certainly work with advocates to further define that in the language if they're open to it. I mean, we're happy to help lend our expertise where we can.
Madam Chair, this doesn't to do with advocates. This has to do with standards that are in some code. Not with, he likes this standard of low fume paint, and somebody over here likes, well, I want something a little bit different. There's got to be some sort of overall document that everybody can refer to. And if you want to change it, but don't change it because somebody's opinion changes. I don't understand the lack of specificity, Senator Port, and I hope that when we take this back up, that the standards and the reference to whatever standards are being proposed can be defined by reference. And if the reference changes, well then this changes. And so you change it every 2 years, but if you put the reference in to that code as it changes, then you only have to do it once. You don't have to come back and visit it over and over again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Port.
I'll just thank you, Chair Boldon and Senator Rest. We'll just note that these standards are in the building codes, and that is where they're referenced. We wanted to ensure that people when we use HIBs, that they now have a section of them that are required to use, a percentage of them that are required to use these terms that are in Minnesota building codes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Port. I want people to be reassured that their safety and their preferences are in the statute, not just in people's heads. Thank you.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you. Chair, and thank you guys for the good discussion on this. I was just going to ask the agency if, how often do you meet with Dolly then to go over code changes every time there's a code update, or do you do that on an annual basis?
Mr. Kitzberger.
Madam Chair, Senator Draheim, I actually don't know the answer to that. That would, I can ask our architectural division about that, but, you know, they, as part of their licensure, are required to be up to date on their understanding of code, so I can get you a specific timeline.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair. You know, I think the concept is, I don't hear anybody arguing against what you're trying to do here. I think Senator Rest's point of being clear is important. We have a lot of different contractors. Some come from out of state. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. And as this moves forward, I think some clarity in this section, if it's your intent to keep it, Senator Port, that we just spell it out to make sure everybody does it correct. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any follow-up, Senator Port?
Thank you, Chair Boldon and Senator Draheim. I think we can definitely tighten up the language and refer back to the building codes that are referenced. I'm happy to do that, to continue to work on that.
Senator Draheim.
And then I would also, if we're going to move forward with this, I do think Senator Rest's advice to move this to state government, if we're going to have rulemaking in it, which it sounds like it would have to have in it, that we have them at least have the opportunity to look at it, and even if they send it back. But I think it should really go to state government for a glance.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Chair Boldon and Senator Draheim. I don't believe it does have rulemaking. It refers to guidelines that are listed in other places, like the building codes, but it refers to those which are already required for this. It just adds that if you are using HIBs, there is now a requirement to build a certain number of accessibility units that reach that guideline. It doesn't create new standards. It just ensures that a certain percentage of units meet standards that are already in building codes.
Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the bill author. Again, I appreciate the conversation, but I was tracking up until just that last comment, because it's my understanding that because they are not specified in what we've been talking about, that rulemaking would be needed so that the department is empowered to write the rules on what this ambiguous language means. But now I just heard that rulemaking would not be needed. Well, so I'm confused right now if rulemaking is going to be needed or not needed.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Senator Boldon and Senator Lucero. MHFA would follow state accessibility codes. They've previously been laid out in HIBs only to be like an optional shower. These would lay out additional requirements for HIBs, but the specificity of what they mean is in state building codes.
Senator Lucero.
Okay, well, then on that note, thank you, Madam Chair. So then my question for the department is, or was going to be, I don't know if it needs to be asked anymore, but it was going to be, are you the appropriate department to even specify what code is? Because I don't think that you would be the correct agency even to empower to decide what the building code is going to be. But then as I just heard, Madam Chair, the bill author suggests that their code is already there and they're just going to point to it. Well, if that's the case, then I'm very much in favor of what Senator Rest is saying, because if the code is already there and the specification is already there, since it's already been done on line 3.22, well, let's eliminate an entire step. Let's not empower an agency with rulemaking just to have to point to a code that exists. Let's replicate what's already been done on line 3.22 and specify that. Then we can skip the entire rulemaking step. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think what I've heard from Senator Port is that she is open to continuing that work, and so, Senator Port.
That's correct.
Okay. Other questions or discussion, members? All right. With that, Senator Port, would you like to renew your move of the A1 amendment?
Yes. I'd like to move the A1, please.
All right, Senator Ports moves the A1 amendment, which is in your packets, members. All those in favor of the A1, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. All right, the motion passes and the amendment is adopted. All right. Any further discussion or questions, members? Senator Drahan?
I'd like to walk through on the 8-1 just to kind of clarify what's left, because it
Certainly.
is confusing.
Yep, certainly. Mr. Mueller?
Madam Chair, what the A1 amendment does is deletes, in order to get this bill over into the Capital Investment Committee, to take up Section 6 of the bill, we're going to delete all the other sections of the bill so that the Capital Investment Committee doesn't have to worry about those sections in there, and they just get the bonding part of the bill over there. And then what's the chair has mentioned, Senator Porter has mentioned, we're going to lay these sections over that we're deleting out of the bill for further consideration to keep working on, namely Section 2. Section 3 and 4 and 5 deal with HIBs, the authorization, and that we'll see in the governor's bill too, whether how much of that is going to be authorized. So we'll be dealing with those sections also in the budget bill anyways. So it's mostly Section 2 of the bill that is going to be laid over for further consideration. And I'll also note the other bill on the agenda, Senate File 1370, also has that same section of statute in the bill, and that bill is also going to be laid over. So the issues in Section 2 are going to be laid over and not sent to the Capital Investment Committee.
Senator Draheim?
Thank you for the clarification, and thank you, Chair. So we're going to keep 615 and through 6.32, and the rest we're going to mythically throw away, even though it's housing infrastructure bonds, and I thought we had jurisdiction over that and not capital investment, I guess would be my question.
Mr. Mueller?
Madam Chair, Senator Drahan, the housing and investment bonds portion of the bill is coming out before we send it over to capital investment. So they are being dealt with within this committee. So we're taking them out of the bill so that capital investment doesn't have to deal with them.
Senator Drahan?
Thank you.
All right, Senator Port?
No, thank you. We will move this part now that remains in the bill, which is the capital investment portion, which our committee does not have jurisdiction over, but which the Capital Investment Committee does have jurisdiction over. So I would move then that Senate File 1094 as amended pass and be referred to the Capital Investment Committee.
We did vote on the amendments. Senator Rest? Yes. So Senator Port moves that Senate File 1094 as amended pass and be referred to the Capital Investment Committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes and the bill is on its way. All right, moving on. Second item on the agenda is Senator Port's Senate File 1370. Senator Port, to your bill.
Thank you, Chair Boldon. I am bringing forward Senate File 1370, which is, I guess, a language change to finance the cost of the construction for multifamily rental houses for households with income at 50% AMI or lower, to make that an allowable use for HIBs. As we talked about earlier in the testimony, that's a portion of the population that does not need supportive services, but needs affordable housing at that 50% and lower rate. And currently, housing infrastructure bonds are only allowable up to the 30% AMI without supportive services. So this expands the use, and I have Mr. Kitzberger from the agency to talk about that.
Mr. Kitzberger, please introduce yourself again and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Dan Kitzberger. I'm the Legislative Director at Minnesota Housing. This is a governor's policy recommendation. We've been trying to get this done for a few years, and so very thankful for the advocates' support. You'll recognize a variation of this language from the bill we just heard. I guess the distinction would be that they spell out the specific criteria for setting income limits. That is, in fact, the criteria we would use. We just have kind of simplified that definition. And then we also, our language only contemplates new construction, in part because, when we originally drafted this language and were proposing it, we were seeing primarily applications coming through our consolidated RFP for new construction, so wanted to be responsive to that. And also make sure that we're drawing some distinction between sources of funding that would be available through HIB proceeds, and then also through the governor's recommendation for a community stabilization program or naturally occurring affordable housing preservation funding. Certainly open to continuing to work with the advocates, as we work to refine the language toward a final bill. So with that, I think I can take questions.
Thank you. Members, any discussion or questions? Senator Drahan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Port, for bringing it forward. I'm just kind of looking over, once again, it looks like we'll have an amendment on this bill. And the main change, I guess, is the 25 to 50%. Can you elaborate on the need to go from, we're on Bill 989, correct?
Senator Drahan, no, we are
Oh,
on
I'm
Bill
sorry.
1370.
I'm sorry, I'll hold off then, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion, members? All right, Senator Port.
Thank you. Aside from Senator Drahan giving me a heart attack that I had an amendment that I didn't know about. I appreciate your consideration for this, and I think the move is that we'll lay this over for inclusion in our policy omnibus.
Yes, very good. So this bill will be laid over for possible inclusion. Members, we are going to take a 5-minute recess before we move to the next bill, which I will present. So I will then hand the gavel back to Chair Port, but we will reconvene in 5 minutes.
We will come back to order. And Senator Boldon, I believe you have Senate File 989 to present.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Madam Chair and committee members, I'm grateful to be here to present Senate File 989. This is a bill that would provide $40 million. I do have an amendment, so I'll come to that in just a moment, to the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency for the Workforce Housing Development Program. This would also increase the maximum grant or deferred loan from 25% of the total project to 50% of the total project cost. So as we've been hearing in this committee, the challenges related to housing across our state. This bill will help to address the unique challenges that communities in greater Minnesota face in developing new housing. Investing in the workforce housing program will bring essential economic growth and job creation to small communities across the state. And for many towns and cities, the affordable housing constructed through this program will help to keep their businesses afloat. Stable and affordable housing is the foundation of growth for communities across the state. Housing affordability will keep Minnesota competitive as we look to draw young professionals and families into our communities. And this program is especially important to smaller towns in greater Minnesota, which are looking to grow and continue to thrive. The Greater Minnesota Workforce Housing Development Program has received bipartisan support in the legislature for years, and I encourage my colleagues to support this critically needed funding to help keep that tradition alive. And that have some testimony.
Thank you, Chair Boldon. Mr. McMahon, do you want to introduce yourself and present your testimony?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Scott McMahon. I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Minnesota Partnership, and we are pleased to be able to testify in support of this bill. I want to thank Senator Boldon for bringing it forward, and from the financing standpoint, I want to thank Governor Walz and Commissioner Ho for including a comparable budget request in their housing budget that came out a couple weeks ago. This is probably the most important program that we have for housing across greater Minnesota. As we talk with our community leaders, our business leaders, our developers across greater Minnesota, the thing that we hear consistently is the segment of housing that we are lacking the most is workforce housing. And workforce housing, just for kind of a common understanding, is that housing that we're looking for that entry-level machinist or technician at a manufacturing plant, first-year teacher, first-year nurse moving into the community, that make good wages, aren't going to qualify for our income-restricted housing programs, but don't have the nest egg saved up to deal with a 20% down payment or the other housing situation that we face. There's a handout that you have. It's a report. It's an updated report that we did from the Center for Rural Policy and Development's report from 2018 that really lays out the housing challenges that we have in greater Minnesota. And the easiest way to explain it is our market for housing, whether it's multifamily rental or single-family owner or occupied, is completely upside down. On the single-family side of things, if a house costs $350,000 to build, it's going to appraise for $275,000 once it's done. Similar situation on the multifamily rental is that the rents that we're able to charge in our markets are inadequate to actually finance the construction of the project. And you'll hear more about an example from this from our next two testifiers. But this program helps on that rental side to bridge that gap between what the market could support to finance the project and what it actually costs to produce. So to give you a couple of examples of what happens in greater Minnesota when we don't have this housing available, when we look at the current historic low unemployment rates that we have of 2.5% or lower, that means that we are generally looking outside of our communities to recruit our new workforce. So we're looking for people to move, ideally from out of Minnesota into greater Minnesota. But we can't do that if we don't have the housing for them. So 4 examples of what has happened in greater Minnesota in recent years. Example number 1, up in northern Minnesota, we have had a hotel that had its best years ever during COVID. Now, anybody who knows the hotel industry in Minnesota, they got hammered hard during COVID because nobody was staying at them. This hotel had their best year ever because they were full of employees from the local manufacturing plant who were living in that hotel day after day. At the same time, that community had vacant affordable housing units that were sitting empty. And that exists because we have good paying jobs in greater Minnesota. We don't have as much demand for the affordable housing, but we have this demand for a workforce. And so we need to figure out how to get the appropriate mix of housing available in our communities. The second example is down in Windham, Minnesota. The High Life Pork manufacturing plant down there has had a long-term rental of a motel in Mankato. And every day they bus their employees back and forth from Mankato. To put this in perspective for you, this would be the equivalent of your LAs and CAs and research staff living in Rochester and hopping on a bus every day and driving to St. Paul to come to work. Imagine how hard it would be to retain your staff in that situation. The third example is a community of under 2,000 people, has one major manufacturing plant there, manufactures the product that goes across the country. They recently had a situation where they were trying to recruit 2 employees. Both employees that they found candidates for wanted the job, wanted to move in the community. They discovered that those 2 candidates were bidding on the one house that was available in that area. So end of the day, one employee got the job, moved to Minnesota, and got the house, and the other employee turned down the job, didn't get the house, and didn't move to Minnesota. The final one is we've got an employer who has been looking to hire 100 new employees, and these are high-tech engineering-type positions. They've been able to fill about a third of the positions. Of the remaining 2/3 that they have not been able to fill, the number one reason is that that community does not have the housing that they need. So the lack of workforce housing in greater Minnesota has been a detriment to our economic expansion, which deals with the economic vitality and success of Minnesota as a whole. So the proposed appropriation for this bill will have a huge impact on getting the housing that we need in greater Minnesota to support our business community, to support our economic engine, to support the vitality of our communities. I do want to hit quickly on the policy change in this bill to move the grant amount from 25 to 50%. One of the things that we see happening is within this grant program, often when the financing is included as part of the financing for the program, that prevailing wage kicks in. And we see at times that prevailing wage cost will increase the total project cost anywhere from 13 to 18%. So this is just an attempt to make sure that this grant encompasses that cost impact that comes into play as a result of accepting this as part of the financing. So with that, those are my comments. Happy to answer any questions that we have, but I anticipate a lot of the questions will likely be answered by our next 2 testifiers as well.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. We'll go to our next testifier, which I believe is virtual. Dan Fabian, if you want to come on to camera and unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to address the group. Apologize for the interruption here. And to the author, Senator Boldon, thank you for your work on this. It's obvious to me that you recognize the problem here in much of greater Minnesota. And I'm in my 3rd year as mayor of Roseau, and the biggest problem that we've dealt with since I've come on board is workforce housing. We have a robust economy, you might say, with regards to our manufacturing and other things that are going on in our town. Polaris Industries is there, Marvin Windows is 20 some miles away. Our hotels are full, as Mr. McMahon talked about, with employees who are using those hotels. And so then as a result of that, our tourism industry, which in the wintertime obviously centers around hockey tournaments and snowmobile things like that, it's difficult to find space for workers and for our tourists that are coming to town. When I came on board, the city had already embarked on a project called the 1101 apartment. There's 37 units. Skip DeShano and D.W. Jones did a great job. Our city administrator, Todd Peterson, did a great job pulling that project together. We had to delay the project a little bit because many of the bids were coming in due to inflationary pressures. Get fortunate in that we got a grant from this grant program
And we were able to complete the project, but it took a tremendous amount of local effort. Polaris threw money into the project, put money into the project, put money into the project. Our local HRA, we as a city and our EDA own the building. We have 37 units, like I said. And without the grant that we got, and I appreciate Commissioner Ho, who was at the grand opening for the project, fully understands the problem associated with market rate workforce housing. In the 37 units that we opened in last summer, they filled up in a matter of about 30 days. And the majority of the people who moved into that apartment came from outside the state of Minnesota. Mr. McMahon also talked about rental rates. I guess I could tell you a little bit about our rental rates in Roseville. Our studio in that new building is $735. A one bedroom, one bath is $945 a month. A two bedroom, one bath is $1,050. And a three bedroom, two bath is $1,200. And those are the problems that we're facing. And I really appreciate the bill author, Senator Boldon, bringing this forward. I think it's very, very much needed. I support the bill. And if you have any questions of me or what's going on in Roseville or much of Minnesota, in rural Minnesota, I'd be happy to answer those questions. The last thing I want to point out is that Mr. McMahon pointed out the gap that exists, and that's the big problem. The appraisal comes in at $4.5 million, but the actual cost to build it is $6.5 million, and then we've got that gap. So when we do TIF, tax abatement, get the HRA money, and then we combine that with the donations from Polaris and Life Care Medical Center and Carl Manufacturing, and then finally, the final piece of that puzzle was the grant from Minnesota Housing Finance. That's what made the project possible. And we could build 2 more of those units, and I think Roseville would actually be in a really good place if we did that. I would also like to mention that we as a city are developing residential single-family lots. They've become increasingly expensive to do, but we've decided that that's something that we need to do. So we're looking forward to continuing growing. It's a lot better to deal with issues associated with growth than it is to be dealing with issues that are associated with a shrinking economy and a shrinking population. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members.
Thank you, Mayor Fabian. Our final testifier is also virtual. Mr. Duchesneau, please introduce yourself for the committee and present your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Skip Duchesneau, and thank you for the opportunity to share my experience on the importance of the Workforce Housing Development Program administered by Minnesota Housing Finance and Senate File 989. I'm the president of DW Jones, located in Walker, Minnesota. We develop, own, and manage multifamily, affordable, market rate, assisted living, and workforce housing properties in greater Minnesota. Our management oversees approximately 130 buildings totaling 3,500 units. We have developed workforce housing projects back when the program was initially at DEED and now at Minnesota Housing Finance. I want to compliment you that this is the simplest and easiest program to work with of any government funding that I've ever been involved with, and I've been doing this for 37 years. Since the program was launched, we have been awarded funding for 8 projects in communities such as Thief River Falls, Glenwood, Pelican Rapids, 2 in Alexandria, Long Prairie, Roseau, and Warroad. What you need to understand is you're not helping DW Jones with this funding. You are helping Minnesota businesses who employ hardworking people who pay Minnesota taxes. I work with many employers to help resolve housing issues in order to provide housing for new employees to live. We have worked with such companies as DigiKey, Polaris, Articat, Marvin Companies, Long Prairie Packing, West Central Turkey, to name a few. These are major employers within these communities that they're located in, and in most cases want to expand or currently are in need of employees. I'm going to tell you a little story about the most recent employer that we're working with, and that is Marvin Companies in Warroad. They've developed and began manufacturing a new window line called Modern. That window line has moved from Warroad, Minnesota to Fargo, North Dakota in 2022 out of necessity. They didn't have enough employees in Warroad to build the line due to the housing shortage. That window line factory is by itself now employing 130 people, including professional and direct labor employees, in a 125,000 square foot building. They are now going to lease a new building next to that, another 125,000 square feet in Fargo, North Dakota, to expand that line and add another 30 to 50 jobs in this coming year. Modern is their fastest growing window line in the company, and all these jobs, Modern Window Line could have been Minnesota-based jobs had it not been for the housing shortage in Warroad, Minnesota. The housing shortage has impeded their ability to hire employees and expand in Warroad. Now there's some good news. We did break ground on a 65-unit building in Warroad in August of 22. Although we were late for the Modern Window Line, we did receive funding from Minnesota Housing Finance from the Workforce Development Program to move this project forward. The building is expected to open in September of 23 and is the start of keeping Minnesota jobs in Warroad. Because of the job growth expectations Marvin has for their Warroad community over the next 3 years, Marvin is already pushing us for a second building. Unfortunately, there currently is no funding available for the Workforce Housing Development Program. We will most likely not be able to start the second phase until 2024 or until funding is provided to Minnesota Housing Finance. I urge you to support Senate File 989 to increase the maximum grant and deferred loan amount from 25 to 50% of the project cost and fund an additional $20 million for fiscal year 2024 to be in line with the governor's proposed budget. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. DeShano. For your testimony, Senator Boldon, do you have further comments?
Senator Chairport, thank you. I have an amendment that I would like to move, the A1 amendment, which changes the allocation from 20 million to 40 million to match the allocation in the governor's budget and would come closer to being able to meet the need that is out there.
Thank you. Senator Boldon moves the A1 amendment on Senate File 989. This is an author's amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment is adopted. Final comments to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think
Chair.
we've demonstrated the need. I'm happy to answer questions, but would encourage member support.
Thank you. Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my question is to the testifier at the table. Thank you for your remarks. If I heard you correctly, I thought I heard you say, if you could confirm that the cost to build is increased by 13 to 15% due to prevailing wage. My question is, if I heard you correctly, could you explain how that's happening?
Mr. McMahon.
Madam Chair, Senator Lucero. Yeah, so part of what happens with the acceptance of the public financing with the projects, certain requirements need to be met, and one of them is once the grant is at a certain level, I believe it's $200,000 or higher, the project is required to adhere to prevailing wage, which we have seen in recent years cost increases in the neighborhood of 13 to 15 to 18% across the project when prevailing wage is applied to the full project.
Follow-up, Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, or Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. So if prevailing wage were not a mandate, would you expect then the price to decrease significantly across the board?
Mr. McMahon.
Madam Chair, Senator Lucero, you know, it's going to vary from project to project. You know, Greater Minnesota, we've got 80 counties. We have different market pressures in each of them. Different prevailing wage amounts apply in different geographic areas. And so we do see variances from project to project, but over the course of this program, we have generally seen the cost of the production to be higher once prevailing wage applies to the project.
Follow-up, Senator Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then so my last remark would be, I also heard the testifier earlier say, comment, the cost to construct exceeds the fair market value. That's very distressing, because if market forces don't allow for something to be constructed that at least matches what the market would bear for a price, then that is a formula that just doesn't work. And so one of the things that's concerning to me is if we have government mandates that are inflating the cost of construction by 13 to 15%, which exacerbates a supply problem that we have, just for government then having created or contributed to creating a problem, for government to come in and say, oh, because it costs more to construct than the fair market value is, now we need to spend government dollars to help subsidize and buy down some of that cost. So with that in mind, based on the testifier's remarks, my last question, Madam Chair, for the Chief Author would be, would you be willing to consider repealing that prevailing wage requirement that is driving up the cost of construction by 13 to 15%?
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Sarah, for the question. In short, no. The folks doing that work deserve to make a living wage, deserve the wages that they are receiving for that important work. I also will just note, in terms of the moving from the limit of the 25% up to the 50%, part of the other reason for that is, and the reason for we're seeing costs for building increase is just, as we're seeing across the board, increases in construction, supplies, and operating costs that contributes to that as well. So I don't think it's fair to necessarily say if we would remove prevailing wage, everything would be decreased by 13 to 18%.
Mr. McMahon.
Madam Chair, we had a community stakeholder event this summer, and we had a developer as a part of the conversation. And his comments to the group was basically, at that point, we were starting to see interest rates for financing go up. And he said basically at 3.5%, at 4%, like they're stopping. We're now seeing 5.5%, 6%. Those costs, the cost of lumber, have been significant cost increases that make these projects even harder to get done. Mayor Fabian commented that the project they opened up this summer, which was clearly built prior to the summer, you had about a $2.5 million gap between what that project cost and what that project appraised for when it was done. We have now seen interest rates go up significantly more than what they were dealing with in that project went in there. And so, yes, a portion of that 25 to 50% is for some of the requirements that come into play there. But there are a lot of other market forces that are coming into play here that are having real impacts on our ability to get hammer swinging and concrete going to the ground to make these projects happen.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. Follow-up, Senator Lucero?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, but the forces of material increases are happening everywhere. That's not unique to Minnesota. What is unique to Minnesota is that the cost to construct is exceeding the cost in neighboring states in the upper Midwest. So the question is, what makes us different that those cost increases are exceeding even faster than the similar market forces to materials are happening in other states? So that's equal, right? What makes us different? And I just to draw attention, I think it's a method of circular reasoning to say, and I agree, people need to obviously have livable wages, and we want people to be skilled people to be paid well. But if that's coming at the cost of now construction is unaffordable, that's circular reasoning, and it actually defies what we're trying to accomplish. And I think we just need to keep in mind, Madam Chair, that we need to increase construction. We need to get the barriers out of the way. And if we do have government mandates that are making construction more expensive in Minnesota than neighboring states, when other variables such as materials are held equal, we need to take a close examination of what we can do from a government policy to roll back those mandates to allow more construction quicker. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Rest.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Boldon. In the tax committee, we tried any number of times to come up with a workforce housing development TIF program, and it failed. It simply could not happen. But because of the gaps, you just could not find the gap financing that would allow the housing to go forward, and so people continue to have to drive 50 miles to get to a job because they couldn't afford to live where their job was. And at the time, we said, just give them the money. And that's what's started out here. But I don't have a statute book in front of me, but the Workforce Housing Development Program, that is an appropriation, it is general fund money. How is that defined in 462A39, Council?
Ms. Painter?
Is it a long definition? I don't recall.
Not entirely sure what you mean.
There's a reference on
Yes.
line 115 to section
So there
462A.39. What is that?
6 subdivisions in that section of the statute. The first one establishes the program. And then the next section has definitions, including eligible project area, joint county-city economic development authority, market rate residential properties, and qualified expenditure. Let me go into more detail on any of those.
So, Madam Chair, so it's referring to market rate housing, not, this is not any kind of special program that is for affordable housing, however that's defined. This is all market rate, and we're now going to with your amendment, we're going to double that to 40 million. And then my question is, so it's a general fund appropriation. So Senator Port, that becomes part of your target, right?
That's correct.
And so this bill is staying in the committee.
That's correct.
To be part of the target discussion later. I'm just,
Yes,
because
Senator Rust.
sometimes, we're moving things on, and I need to make sure that I know what stays here and what slips by. We try to do that in taxes too. And it's, we just have to have our arithmetic in order.
Yes.
As we're building toward the targets. I just wanted to be clear that that process is how it's working here too. But you're intending to spend 40 million of your target on this program.
Thank you for
Is
the
that it?
question, Senator Rust. I am intending to consider spending $40 million on
consider
this
spending.
program out of my target, yes.
In order to meet or in order to respond to the governor's recommendation, you're going to be considering that recommendation seriously as well as part of your target.
That's correct, Senator
Okay,
Rust.
good. Thank you. I understand now.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair Port, and thank you for bringing this bill forward. I do think it is a good program, and I think we got to work through the process. But I think to help with that, it would be great if Mr. Mueller could give us a history of how much has been in this fund, and what percentage has been used. I assume it's all been used. It sounds like it's a very successful program, the way it's drafted, which I think came in 2017. So for those of us that have been around a couple years, that was on us, which I think we liked the program. But if we could just start with how much was allocated and then how much was spent over the last 5 years.
Mr. Mueller.
6 years.
Madam Chair and Senator Draheim, the current, I'll go back to as far as what I can remember. The current base level funding is $2 million per year. The bill would bump that up to $22 million for 2 years and then back down to $2 million. So it's just giving it a one-time infusion, if you would say, of an extra $40 million. But the base funding is $2 million per year. And I think as the testifiers have mentioned, the amount of funding that has been available has been used up pretty quickly within the agency, and I think the agencies would testify to that also. This program, as Senator Ress has also mentioned, has lived since 2015 or 16, and once was housed actually in Deed for a little bit, and then it was moved over here. And the funding that it originally started at when it was over at Deed, I think it was less than the $2 million, so it's been building up a little bit since it started. So yeah, the base funding is $2 million per year. The other program I think that you're aware of is the Workforce Home Ownership Program, and that's at $250,000 per year right now, but that's focusing on individual family homes is the other similar program.
Follow-up, Senator Draheim?
Thank you. And as far as you're aware, this $2 million has been eaten up every year, Senator, or Mr. Mueller?
Mr. Mueller?
Madam Chair and Senator Draheim, I believe so, yes. And I would ask I'll follow up with the agency more on that, but I think they're nodding that yes, it has been used up each year.
Senator
Thank you.
Draheim?
I'm good.
Thank you. Members, other questions? All right, as noted, we will lay this over for possible inclusion in our budget bill. And we have one final bill today, still by Senator Boldon, Senate File 609. Senator Boldon, go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. So I am happy to present Senate File 609, which is a simple bill that provides flexible and easily deployable resources to local communities in Minnesota that invest in local resources into a housing trust fund. Local housing trust funds are funds established by local governments by dedicating local public revenue for housing. They are a consistent, flexible resource for housing within a local jurisdiction. Trust funds help communities leverage public and private resources and jumpstart projects that draw investment and jobs. Local housing trust funds enable communities to prioritize developments that maximize benefit to the local community. Senate File 609 would appropriate $10 million in funds to incentivize the creation of more local housing trust funds and support existing funds. There are currently 20 established trust funds. According to the Minnesota Housing Partnership Survey, 35 cities or counties are interested in establishing a trust fund. Each community has unique needs, different strategic priorities, varied local resources, and diverse challenges. Local housing trust funds enable communities to plan for housing development and preservation. Local resources are deployed on projects that meet locally identified needs and community-identified priorities. Sometimes these priorities align with state and federal priorities, and communities can use their local trust funds to leverage additional resources at Minnesota Housing. Sometimes the community's priorities and needs do not align with state goals, and communities need resources to deliver housing to their current and future residents. So members, this is another tool to help with housing across the state, and we have a couple testifiers, and I encourage your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Boldon. To let members know before we go to testifiers, my intention with this bill is also to lay it over for possible consideration in the omnibus. First, we will go to Stephanie Hawkins. Ms. Hawkinson, sorry. If you would introduce yourself and submit your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Stephanie Hawkinson. I work as the Affordable Housing Development Manager for the City of Edina. So thank you for having me here. I am here to testify in support of Senate File 609. Local housing trust funds have proven to be a valuable tool in furthering affordable housing goals. They are a flexible source of fund that allow local communities to be creative and nimble in addressing the affordable housing shortages and housing disparities that we all face. In March 2019, the City of Edina City Council approved an ordinance to establish an affordable housing trust fund. It has been invaluable in the preservation of existing affordable housing, the creation of new units, supporting low and moderate homeowners, and addressing housing disparities in homeownership. Edina was also able to quickly tap into these funds to provide emergency rental assistance in the early weeks of COVID before CARES and ARPA funds were made available. More specifically, with the trust funds, we provided 41 home rehab loans to low and moderate income households. They'll be forgiven if the homes are made permanently affordable through a land trust. We have provided 7 down payment assistance loans to first-generation home buyers to address the housing disparity gap. We have acquired 10 houses thus far, rehabilitated them, and sold them to income-eligible buyers through the land trust model. We have supported 10 affordable rental units and market-rate developments, and we created a NOAA preservation program with energy improvement and grant component. Quick action and nimbleness was required to buy a nuisance property that is now being renovated for permanent affordability. These funds allow us to be creative in how we address housing needs in the community. A state match via Senate File 609 will go a long way in supporting cities to address and tackle the affordable housing needs within our own communities. These funds will also serve to incentivize us to do more. Truthfully, we pushed for the passage of this ordinance in our city because we learned that there may be matching funds from the state being considered. We already invested over $7 million in affordable housing trust funds for the people, to serve the people that need it. We will, with additional assistance, we will do more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkinson. Devin Pullman. Ms. Pullman.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairwoman Port, Vice Chair Boldon, and committee members for the opportunity to testify today in support of this bill. My name is Devin Pullman. I serve as the Community Development Director at Minnesota Housing Partnership. The work of our team is to really help support capacity building and provide technical assistance to communities throughout the state of Minnesota, as well as nationally, around affordable housing and community development needs. To that end, we support communities looking to advance their community planning practices, their housing development work, helping them identify and leverage funding sources, and making sure that they can actually produce affordable housing that's needed in their community for their community members, that's good quality housing and provides a lasting investment within their communities. Our work includes assisting with single-family home ownership, multifamily development, permanent supportive housing, and workforce housing. Over the last 5 years, we've seen a significant increased interest in local housing trust funds as a critical tool that local communities can really drive to help meet their community housing needs, as evidenced by the fact that we now have 20 local housing trust funds here in the state of Minnesota within the last 5 years. There are 4 key aspects that really set local housing trust funds in this model apart that I think are particularly noteworthy. The first is that it creates a flexible funding source, so that communities are able to make decisions in a more timely and efficient manner, and they can tailor funds to their priority housing needs. We just heard from Ms. Hawkinson that this funding source allowed them to be able to acquire a problem property and to be able to make sure that that property was restored in a better manner for the community. Second, they provide a dedicated funding source for affordable housing, which then sort of leads into the third key quality aspect of this funding source, which is that it creates predictability around funding streams. And that predictability around affordable housing and the ability to meet needs relative to affordable housing helps not just residents of our communities, but it also helps our development partners understand where they can actually get projects done to continue to meet more citizens' needs around affordability. And last, but really importantly, it helps to provide the ability to leverage funding, not just through Minnesota Housing, but with other funding sources. We know that nationally, studies cite that $1 of local housing trust funds leverages $6 additional. We know that locally, some local housing trust funds have leveraged much more than that. Specifically, Minnesota Housing Partnership has worked with a couple of different communities to support their local housing trust funds and programming needs. We worked with Crow Wing County's HRA. They had already established a local housing trust fund through a levy funding, but we assisted them with developing program guidelines for the use of their local housing trust fund and really building up that infrastructure so that they can continue to deliver and develop sound programming to support homeowner rehabilitation, down payment assistance, and multifamily development gap financing. We also help to provide support to Swift County and their HRA. There, they too are using levy sources to help fund their local housing trust fund, but they're focusing on preserving a USDA Section 515 apartment building that provides 16 units to low-income seniors. These Section 515 projects are really critical. Minnesota, the state of Minnesota is at risk of losing a significant share of these resources. So the ability to preserve this housing for seniors, they serve on average seniors earning $14,000 or less annually, is another great example of a way a local community can use this resource to meet their housing needs. It is through this work of establishing partnerships that Minnesota Housing Partnership has been able to help support communities in working to build and support local housing trust funds. And other ways that we've supported this work have been by creating a technical assistance toolkit so that communities know how to go about structuring programming so that they can make lasting investments into their communities. Last, I just really want to highlight the significance of the state matching funds, which does dramatically increase the impact of many small communities' efforts, and at times, but for that investment, allows them to attract outside investment and market rate investment that they would not otherwise be able to bring to the table. These matching funds, again, while they sometimes may seem small, can have a dramatic impact on smaller and medium-sized cities, particularly in greater Minnesota and in all of our communities here in the state of Minnesota. Thank you for the ability to provide my support.
Thank you, Ms. Pullman. Our final testifier is Buffy Baranek online. Ms. Baranek, if you would introduce yourself and provide your testimony.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Buffy Baranek. I am the Executive Director for the Southeastern Minnesota Multi-County Housing and Redevelopment Authority in Wabasha, Minnesota. Thank you for taking the time today to hear our testimony on local housing trust funds and to learn how they are a proven tool that we've used in our local communities and how we've implemented them to respond to our local housing needs. Trust funds really truly are flexible, adaptable, and easily deployable. I urge lawmakers to partner with us and support our initiatives by providing state matching funds to help us maximize and leverage our local investments. We've created a county-level housing trust fund through our HRA levy capacity. We've been able to react to changing market conditions to assist with local housing needs in Goodhue County. For our programs, they include a variety of different tools. One is a down payment assistance program that provides $15,000 towards down payment, closing cost, or buying points. This is a 0% deferred loan that's paid back at the time of sale or refinance. The hope there is that the funds would be reused in that fashion or another need at that time. We are also looking to expand that down payment assistance program to focus on new construction in city housing TIP districts to ensure partnership and risk mitigation with cities, counties, and the HRAs. Again, that 0% deferred loan being paid back at refinance or at the sale of the home. We've also developed a partnership with Habitat for Humanity to complete rural rehab for single-family homes. This mirrors the Small Cities Development Program, the CDBG funds that flow through deed, but this is in greater Minnesota. This is not within the city limits. A land trust was also funded for a housing initiative which partnered with a high school builders trades program to ensure long-term affordability in their local housing market. We've used trust funds to also leverage funding for completing housing studies for new housing developments to occur. And finally, we're looking to develop a rental rehab program for smaller landlords who accept or are willing to accept Section 8 rental assistance. This is a way that we think we can be innovative and encourage an increase in the affordable housing stock. State partnership through Senate File 609 state matching funds for local housing trust funds is important to enhancing existing investments by cities and incentivizing others to take that next step in dedicating funds to housing solutions. I urge the committee to support our local investments and tailor creative solutions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Baranek. Members, questions? Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair Port. Just a question about the 20 trust funds across the state. How many of them have an ownership piece part of, and I know some do down payment assistance. There's a whole bunch of different, wide variety, but and I know they're supposed to report to the local community on what they're doing, but do we collect that overall to see the effectiveness of these? $10 million, if we're going to spend that, we should know where is it going and kind of return on the investment. So any ideas on that?
Senator Boldon?
Chairport, Senator Draheim, that is a great question. I don't have that information in front of me as far as, which communities, exactly how they're leveraging these funds and using it, but I'm happy to get that in follow-up.
Senator Draheim?
Thank you. I just feel if we're going to invest this type of money, and I know there's good funds out there doing good work, but I think we need some guide rails when we look at this type of funding. So.
Thank you, Senator Draheim. I appreciate that. Senator Boldon?
Madam Chair, I believe there is some information related to that in your packet. If it's not everything you want to know about it, I'm happy to follow up, but there is some information in your packet about that.
Senator Rest?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't recall all of these cities, but I know Edina was one, and perhaps St. Louis Park, and I'm not sure if it was in last year's bill. No, it would have to have been in 2021, where we set up a special program, kind of an experiment, but we'll see how it goes, with tax increment financing in the tax committee that had a component relationship, and I don't remember the details right off the bat, with these housing trust funds. And we were particularly concerned about the kind of changing the definition of increment that would allow increment to be part of the housing trust fund. And I'm nervous about whether the dollars that are in the housing trust fund that come from increment, tax increment, are going to be eligible to be considered part of the local investment, and tax committee would be very concerned about that. So I'm going to review this with Senator Weber, Senator Klein, who are an unofficial subcommittee in the tax committee on tax increment financing, and Eric Sylvia, who's our counsel on TIF, just to make sure how this works together, and that the increment is not part of the local match. I hope that's the way it's set up, and I'll let you know what their analysis of that is. Thank you.
Senator Boldon, do you have a response? But I think also Mr. Lightfoot from the cities is able to plug in on this one.
Yes,
Welcome to the hot seat, Mr. Lightfoot. If you want to introduce yourself to the members before you answer, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Daniel Lightfoot with the League of Minnesota Cities. And thanks for your question, Senator Rest. The three cities that received, as Senator Rest noted, I believe it was last session, had temporary authority to transfer unobligated TIF increment, I believe from a housing TIF district into their local housing trust funds. Those cities were Minnetonka, Richfield, and St. Louis Park. But
they were close.
You were in the right vicinity, Senator Rest. I would have to look to see if the non-state resources to trigger a matching grant under this program could allow a city to use that unobligated increment transferred into their trust funds to suffice the matching requirement. I don't know the answer to that, and perhaps the state auditor may have some info on that. I think the key here for this piece of legislation, especially for smaller cities, is to provide some seed capital to establish a new trust fund. Certainly, we want to support existing trust funds, but I think in my mind, when I go around the state,
one of the big primary goals of this is to create new trust funds. And those cities without trust funds wouldn't obviously have, especially if they weren't those 3 cities, wouldn't obviously have the ability to use that unobligated increment in their trust fund because it doesn't exist yet. But we can certainly have that conversation with the property tax division and the committee and you, Chair Rest. But appreciate the question and the conversation on the bill.
Madam Chair, we'll look into it, and thank you, Mr. Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Lightfoot. Members, we are at time. Any last question on this? Okay, Senator Boldon, we will lay over Senate File 609 for possible inclusion. Members, next week we will be meeting on both Tuesday and Thursday, and our agendas are going to ramp up as we are getting closer to deadlines. So please be prompt and let Davin or Courtney know if you are not able to attend for any reason. At that point, we are at the end of our agenda for today, and there being no other business, we are adjourned.